Welcome to another round of Prem and Proper here at SDH. We'll take you through the week that was, get you ready for the weekend that will be when it comes to the Premier League. And it's a week where folks are on a quick turn. Some because of makeup matches, some because of European competition. We'll go through what happened in league over the last 7 days and get you ready for the busy weekend coming up. We'll also hear from some of the managers who are getting ready for their weekends as well. And we will also hear from Drew Dickinson for another round of 3D. The Drew Dickinson diatribe will be coming up later on in the show. So let's get you back over the last 7 days and what happened to get us prepped for where we are. Obviously, the biggest surprise, Villa putting 6 on Brighton. Did not anticipate that one in the early game last Saturday. 6-1 winners there over the Seagulls at a plus 152. Wolves, another shocker, knocking off Manchester City by the final of 2-1 at a plus 730 at the Molyneux. Manchester City went in with a minus 256 at the top of the table. We'll go over the table in just a little bit. West Ham, 2-0 winners over Sheffield United at a minus 222. Newcastle shut out Burnley 2-0 at a minus 256. Crystal Palace at a plus 500 knocked off Manchester United. Anderson with the only goal in that match early on. And Crystal Palace gets the win over Manchester United at a minus 172. We will hear from Eric Ten Hag. We will find out what folks think about Andre Onana coming up in just a little bit. Piece of history at Luton Town and Everton. And it was a win for Luton Town at a plus 475. They would win 2-1 over Everton, and it would be the first win for Luton Town in the current incarnation of the Premier League. Arsenal put 4 on Bournemouth at a minus 185. Spurs over Liverpool in the match of the week for a bunch of different reasons at a plus 200, and we've gone over those all week long on SDH. You can always go back into the library, and you can catch up with all the episodes of SDH on the SDH app, available iOS and Android. Go to Spreaker.com. It's like speaker with an R in the middle, and you can look at individual episodes there as well. Monday Night Football, Nottingham Forest and Brentford, a 1-1 draw. We'll hear from Thomas Frank coming up in just a little bit at a plus 220. Tuesday, Chelsea over Fulham by the score of 2-0 in a makeup match at a plus 119. Speaking of makeup matches at Kenilworth Road, quick turn for Luton Town, having played one of the later matches, one of the 10 o'clocks on Saturday, as well as Burnley, and then they had the match at Kenilworth Road that was supposed to be opening weekend, but Kenilworth Road was not ready. It is now. Burnley, 2-1 winners over Luton Town at a plus 162. So that sets up your standings in the Premier League. Manchester City still on top at 18 points, but the margin is now closer. Spurs at 17, Arsenal at 17. They had to go to goals scored for the margin. So Spurs over Arsenal 2 and 3, 16 points. Liverpool is in fourth at 16 points. Villa is ahead of Brighton on goal difference right now at 15 points. That gets you to 7th. West Ham at 13 points. Newcastle is at 12. They've scored 18 goals in 7 matches so far, so they have built up the second highest goal difference in the Premier League to date. Crystal Palace at 11 points. They are in 9th. Manchester United 3-0-4. They are in 10th mid-table. Chelsea ahead of Nottingham Forest and Fulham by goal difference. It gives you 11, 12, and 13 at 8 points. 7 points. Brentford ahead of Wolves on goal difference, which gets you to 16. It is Everton and Luton Town out of the relegation zone on goal difference over Burnley. It is Burnley, Bournemouth at 3 points, and Sheffield United 0-1-6 out of the blocks. They've given up 19 goals in their first 7 matches. Obviously, the large margin against Newcastle, the bulk of that, but still giving up about 2 goals a match otherwise. 5 goals scored, 19 allowed, minus 14, and they have 1 point on the season. So let's hear from some of the managers and get you ready for some of the discussion heading into the weekend. Ivan Toney is allowed to practice with Brentford. Teams are chasing after him, Chelsea and Arsenal specifically, and they can't have him as a part of their group until after the first of the year. Price tag somewhere between 60 and 80 million pounds. Ivan Toney scored behind closed doors. Here's what Thomas Frank had to say about that, courtesy of Brentford, their own selves.
Let's talk about Ivan Toney. We speak about him a lot, but let's talk about it in a positive light, that he back on the field, back doing what he does, back scoring a goal. How good was it to see that this week?
It was so good. Spoke with him just before he entered the pitch, and I say, enjoy it, I will. And you could just see he really would enjoy to get out there just to play football. He looked like he enjoyed it, and he does what Ivan does, he scored a goal. So it was very good to see he was happy after.
Sean Dyche right now with Everton being where they are, 16th, once again 1-1-5. They are out of the relegation zone on goal difference. They've got a margin of 4 on Burnley. Sean Dyche was asked about the team's play to date and with what happened in the Liverpool-Spurs match, what his thoughts are on VAR, once again courtesy of Everton, their own selves.
Very frustrating one. I said afterwards, pulling your out what little I've got. Because we played well, frustrating on set pieces, but a very good performance, a strong performance, and dominant in so many metrics after the game, that is, on analysis, also on your eyes and the feel, but you don't get a win, and I'm well aware the business is about winning games, and that's something I've always been actually acutely aware of, even, with people have, sometimes ask why you play this way, why you play that way. Ultimately, you've got to win football matches, and that's what we're looking to do. We've delivered the performances, but we've not won enough games, and that's got to change, quite obviously. I'm a fan of it in the decision-making side of things, because I think it's important that where the game is at now, as a spectacle, the business side of the spectacle, I should say, I think, it would be unfair for some decisions to go against teams if it cost them the ultimate price of possibly getting relegated or whatever that may be. On the other side of me, as a fan, just a football fan, obviously I'm aware it slows the game down, it makes it feel different, and I think it's a fine line to get it right at the minute. I know there's a lot of noise about, the obvious decision going wrong. How they can streamline it, how they can, hopefully improve the senses of sitting in a room. It's different. Referees trying to ref naturally, making a decision. I can only imagine, having not done it, but would be sitting there in front of a screen, gives you that different view, and maybe they almost get too analytical about it rather than going somewhat with an instinct about what they would normally on the grass without VAR, as the case. We've seen that with ourselves. A kind of nothing incident on a keeper led to a goal of ours being disallowed, and yet I was down at Forest watching them play Brentford, and the keeper follows through on Visser, I think it is. He stays on his feet, tries to score a goal and gets nothing, and it's clearly a penalty and possibly a sending off in that moment. So they're the things where I think we're all a bit lost in it, but overall I still think I'm a fan of it. Like I say, from the business point of view, though, I must make that clear. I understand from a fan point of view it just loses that fluidity of the fan feel of what it is.
Aston Villa right now in 5th in that Europa League spot at 5-0-2, having won 4 of 5. Ezri Konsa was asked after Ollie Watkins got the hat trick in the big win over Brighton about Watkins' future. Konsa wants him to stay, courtesy of Villa, their own selves.
I've known Ollie for quite some time now. Played with him at Brentford as well. I always knew how good he was, and when we signed him here, I was over the moon. I knew what he could bring to the team, and it's clear to see what he brings to the team on match days. And like you said, he scored a hat-trick on the weekend, scored a winner against Chelsea, and hopefully he can continue that form and continue to help the team.
How pleased would you be, and how important is it that he commits a long-term future?
I think for the club, it's really important. He scores goals for us, he wins us games, and to have him extend his contract here will be really important for us.
One of the big questions coming into this weekend is the availability and the future of the health of Bukayo Saka at Arsenal. Our friends at the Football Show and Sky Sports News discussed his impact so far this season after the first 7 matches. Spoiler alert, it's substantial.
Be a real blow for Arsenal if it's an injury that might make him miss Sunday's huge game against Manchester City. That's Saka here, and the influence he's featured in Arsenal's last 87 Premier League games. In those 87 appearances, he started 83. The last game he didn't play was against Newcastle on the 2nd of May of 2021. But this here, the influence of Bukayo Saka with and without. OK, only 11 without, but a slight concern there with the win rate. 46%. Points per game, 1.9. Average goals, 1.8. And passes in the final third, 61.3 with Saka, 50.9 without. So Arsenal fans will be hoping if he does just miss one game, it's only one. And of course, it will have implications for England as the squad gets announced on Thursday.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention the international games as well, because this is Michael going through those stats there. That's a very heavy workload that this young man has had to take on. Is there a danger of burnout here? Is that the fear?
I think so, and I think that it's something that a lot of Arsenal fans have been complaining about, because obviously he's a young player and he's such a pivotal part to their successes in recent years, but at the same time he is very young and he has had periods where he has had a few niggles and a few injuries that he has played through. And I think when you're that young, you obviously do want to play every single game, but at the same time it can affect you down the line. I think Pedri was another player at Barcelona, played over 75 games. They were praising that, but now he's out injured for a few months. And when you're that young, you're playing week in, week out. They're going to be playing in the Champions League as well. I think it's going to be quite difficult to manage that. But at the same time, there's no one that is putting up the output that he is in the squad. 5 goals, 5 assists already in Europe. I think the first player to do that in Europe. So it's hard for Arteta, but he's going to have to start switching it up.
Yeah, the injuries are mounting up, not just for Arsenal. Manchester City will be, shouting from the rooftops. They've got their injury problems as well. But the fact that it's either side now, Saka and Martinelli, have they got the depth in this squad that perhaps others have?
Well, considering the amount of money they've spent, you'd have hoped so. I think it's really telling if you look at City's forward line sort of last year, Haaland aside, Bernardo Silva, Grealish and Mahrez, they all played just over 2,000 minutes each that season. Last season, Saka played 3,100 minutes over that, which just shows that, City were able to refresh that line constantly. Arsenal need to be in a position where they have the confidence in their fringe players to put them in and be able to sort of hold up the side when Saka's unavailable, because it's quite clear that he's been playing too much. And the players coming into the side, they need to take their chances. But it's maybe slightly a foresight that they don't have a right winger who's able to come in and perhaps debutise at various points and give him a rest in matches where it looks like they should be fine. Because he came off with a knock against Bournemouth, and it's surprising to see him starting a Champions League game so soon after that.
Then they continued the discussion about Manchester United. Manchester United right now, as we said, in 10th, 3-0-4. They are at 9 points. So a lot of folks are focusing on the activity between the sticks. And we know that Drew Dickinson will do exactly that coming up in just a little bit. So our friends at the football show, that's Sky Sports News, went into the statistical analysis comparison between Andre Onana and David De Gea. Here's what they found out, and here's what they talked about.
Well, I'm sure many Man United fans will be saying to us on the TV screens, it's still very early days. But even so, we know Man United wanted a goalkeeper with better passing stats. Have they got it? So Onana, these are the stats from Onana so far this season. These are the stats from David De Gea from last season. Passes attempted 34.3 to De Gea's 27.6. Completed 26.1 to passes completed 19.1. And the passing accuracy is 76% to 69%. So that's the passing statistic, which is getting more and more important as the seasons go on for all football clubs. Let's have a look at the actual goalkeeping stats now. Clean sheets, 0.3 Onana, 0.43 for De Gea. Goals conceded, De Gea wins that one again with 1.8 Onana and 1.05 for De Gea. Errors leading to goal. There's not much in it between the bottom two. Gents, Onana had a fantastic season for Inter Milan last season. Is this a bit of early days? And also, do we have to take into account there's been a lot of changes in defence as well?
Yeah, I think it's early days. It's tough because when you spend that much money on a goalkeeper, you expect them to have the fundamentals down and, the shot stopping and saving you in the last few minutes. And I don't think Onana has done that for Manchester United so far. We can see by the stats that on the ball, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world. But I don't think Manchester United, in terms of their defence, are prepared for the type of keeper he is. when he's trying to play the ball out, sometimes you don't see the centre-backs or the full-backs showing as much. They haven't even been able to really play their strongest defence. That might be a reason why he's not been able to, feel as confident. But when you look at the amount of goals that he's conceded, and then also the type of goals, the lob from Icardi, it looked like he could have just caught that. The ball bounced before it got into the goal. So those things aren't going to fill United fans with confidence. But I do think eventually he will come good.
And then Erik ten Hag was asked about his goalkeeping situation, courtesy once again of Manchester United.
We are happy with our goalkeeping group. Definitely with Andre. And Andre, come on, he was in one semi-final Champions League. He was last season, he was in a final Champions League. So he has the capabilities to be one of the best goalkeeper in the world. He showed that, and he will do. We already have seen in games his great capabilities. Also his personality. If he make a mistake, he will bounce back, and I'm sure he will do in the coming games as well. We are happy with our goalkeeping group. Definitely with Andre. And Andre, come on, he was in one semi-final Champions League. He was last season, he was in a final Champions League. So he has the capabilities to be one of the best goalkeeper in the world. He showed that, and he will do. We already have seen in games his great capabilities, also his personality. If he make a mistake, he will bounce back, and I'm sure he will do in the coming games as well.
And then we mentioned Burnley with their win over Luton Town to draw them to 1-1-5 and closer to being out of the relegation zone, their first win of the year. Remember, right now only two teams do not have a win through their first 7 matches, Bournemouth and Sheffield United. So Vincent Kompany was asked after the Luton Town win about having Jakob Brun-Larsen getting the game-winning goal and what it may mean to his confidence once again, courtesy of the Clarets, their own self.
It's great for the team, lads, the fans, and it had been coming, we felt, and it's a good result, really good result and performance. I'm happy for him because his journey was a lot of struggle, injuries, and he used to be one of these so-called European big talents when he was like 18, 19, coming through at Dortmund, and it never really came off for him, and today he showed like a glimpse of what he still can become. And hopefully he stays on this trajectory now.
So that sets us up for the 3D, and it's time to catch up with Drew Dickinson and what's on his mind. I'm guessing Manchester United for starters. Take it away, Joey.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Drew Dickinson. We are ready to go for another episode, version, whatever you want to call it, prim and proper, right here on Soccer Down Here. Shout out to John Nelson and crew for having me back once again. Where do I begin? Of course, I'm going to start with my beloved Manchester United. We'll get right into it. Erik ten Hag, he comes in last season, and as everybody pretty much saw, he overachieved. 3rd place finish, Carabao Cup trophy, FA Cup final, brings in reinforcements in the offseason, not the ones he wanted, but we won't get into that right now. Still having to deal with a board that, obviously will not back a United manager. And, it doesn't help when you start off the season with 16, I'll say it again, there have been 16 first-team injuries. And I'll go ahead and name those off for you real quick. Tom Heaton, backup goalkeeper, calf injury. Harry Maguire missed 3 games with 2 separate injuries. Aaron Wan-Bissaka out since the Brighton game a few weeks ago. Rafael Varane missed 3 games. Victor Lindelof came off injured at Arsenal. Lisandro Martinez came off injured at Arsenal and has missed the last 2 games. And he's going to miss 3 months for surgery to repair that foot that somehow didn't heal right. We'll get back on that here in just a few moments. Luke Shaw out since the Spurs game, beginning of the season. Tyrell Malacia, he's been out since preseason. Sergio Reguilon, who is a loanee, mind you, he's missed the last 2 games. Kobe Mainu, injured since preseason, but he's back in training. Look to see Kobe back here real soon. Mason Mount, he missed 5 games. Thankfully, Mason's back. Scott McTominay missed a game. Eriksson missed a game. Ahmad out since preseason. Thankfully, he's back training. Rasmus Højlund missed the first 3 games before he even got on the field for United. And of course, Sofyan Amrabat missed 2 games. Thankfully, he's back into the fold. Unfortunately for Amrabat, with the injuries to the left back, he's having to line up as left back, but thankfully he is very equipped in playing all over the pitch, and it's very good to have Amrabat in a red shirt for United. With that being said, with the left back who was brought in on loan, he's out injured. It's really hard for Ten Hag to make chicken salad out of Well, other reports state that Andre Onana, he's reluctant to join Cameroon in January for the African Cup of Nations because of his slow start at United. You think? Look, I love Andre Onana. I'll be the first to tell you. He's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, but it takes time. It's the injuries. Don't get me started on the injuries again, but how would you think all right, let me say this. It's very difficult to come into a team with the aura of Manchester United and have to play with none of your starting defensemen. Lisandro Martinez out, Rafael Varane injury prone, always out, Luke Shaw out, Aaron Wan-Bissaka out. He's having to have all these defenders rotated in. I'm not making excuses for the mistakes. The bonehead mistakes have to stop. The Champions League mistake, that's got to be it. That has to be it for Onana, but I do see him coming good. Look, De Gea and Onana had very similar starts at United. Same amount of clean sheets almost in the same amount of games. And De Gea turned out okay. So United have Brentford at home on Saturday. I expect to see Anthony back in the fold, who's been cleared of his off-field charges. But I also expect a different lineup, which will make things a little bit more difficult for Onana. But United win in the end 2-0. I'm going to get off my United soapbox because I could just go on forever about the frustrations going on with the club, but we're going to end it at that. We'll save United talk for next week. This weekend, though, we have some absolutely positively outstanding matchups. Our weekly battle at the bottom, Everton hosting Bournemouth. The Cherries are still winless on this season, but I think that changes at Goodison Park on Saturday. Then you wake up Sunday morning, my match of the weekend, Brighton welcoming Liverpool to the Amex after shocking 6-1 defeat at the hands of Aston Villa last week, and a 2-2 draw at Marseille in the Europa League Thursday. De Zerbi and his squad will definitely be looking to bounce back. But Liverpool, after an awful VAR display last week, I can assure you Klopp will have his boys ready to go. And of course, the big one, 1 versus 3. City traveled to the Emirates to take on Arsenal. Arteta versus Pep, the student versus the teacher. Reminds me of the Darth Vader line in Star Wars: A New Hope. The circle is now complete. When I left, I was but the learner, but now I am the master. But unfortunately for Arteta, Pep wins this duel at the Emirates. And of course, not just the games that I mentioned, tons of fun games this weekend. So, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, just keep your eyes out. Great Premier League matchups this weekend. But that's going to do it for me this week. It's been, of course, a prim and proper afternoon for sure. Enjoy the matches. Enjoy your weekend. We will talk to everyone next week. I am Drew Dickinson. This has been Prim and Proper. We'll see you once again next Thursday. Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks to Joey and thanks to Drew. That's your 3D for yet another week. So let's get you into the matches and into the previews with the juice boxes, laying things out. You've got 6 matches on your Saturday, 4 on your Sunday. Early match, Luton Town hosting Spurs at Kenilworth Road. Spurs are a big favorite at a -213. Chelsea favored at Turf Moor at a -130. And your 10 o'clocks, 4 matches at 10 o'clock on Saturday. Chelsea at a -130 as they go to Burnley. Bournemouth, a +286 underdog, going to Everton. And it is Everton at a minus 102. Fulham and Sheffield United. Fulham at a minus 156. Sheffield United basically a plus 490. Draws a plus 300. Manchester United and Brentford, your marquee matchup at the 10 o'clock window. Manchester United at Old Trafford a minus 135. Draws a plus 316. Brentford a plus 363. Your 12:30 match on Saturday afternoon. Crystal Palace hosting Nottingham Forest at Selhurst Park. Palace a plus 1.25. Draws a plus 2.25. And Nottingham Forest is a plus 256. On Sunday, 3 matches at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Brighton hosting Liverpool. How will Brighton rebound after the big loss? How will Liverpool rebound after the big loss for a different reason? Liverpool a plus 108. Draws a plus 309. Brighton a plus 223. West Ham hosting Newcastle. Newcastle, same favorite, a plus 108 in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. Draws a plus 279. West Ham is a plus 248. Wolves at Molineux hosting Aston Villa. They are a plus 249. Draws a plus 266. Aston Villa is a plus 112. And then the marquee matchup of the weekend is your 11:30. We've discussed Bukayo Saka, what he means to Arsenal. How healthy is he? What is Arsenal going to look like? Hosting Manchester City. Manchester City favored at a plus 146. Your draws a plus 246. Arsenal basically is a plus 200 as we head into the international break after all of that. So, as always, enjoy your action in the Premier League on your favorite providers. It'll be a lot to talk about in the off week, and we'll get you ready for it. Thanks again for hanging out for Prem and Proper and another round of the 3D. I'm just John for Drew and everybody here at SDH. Play it safe, everybody. Enjoy the games. That's another round of Prem and Proper. Enjoy your weekend.